Hello everyone! In this short video I'm going to tell you about two simple things to improve your painting technique. First, it's to use the right brush. It means that before you start to paint, you need to decide which brush will allow you to create less brush strokes, for your painting would look more effortless and loose. I mean the size of the brush and the shape of the brush. Let me show you my 5 main brushes which I'm mostly using for my floral paintings. For example, flat brush is really great for creating all those kind of geometrical sharp-edged shadows, especially when the lightest contrast and the border between light and shadow or light and midtones is very defined. Filbert brush is one of my favorite, and it is really great to create the flowers with rounded petals or fluffy flowers like peonies and roses. You can use the wide side of this brush and the edge of it to create the petals of different width. Also, it is really great to paint the overall shapes of the roses with their rounded petals and to show the shadows between petals of different width, because again we can use the edge of the brush and its wide side, which allows us to create less brush strokes and paint larger areas. And if I need to paint the very large petals or very large flowers, I use the larger size of filbert brush. Here I'm demonstrating you that the larger size allows to paint those really wide, for example, peony petals in just 2-3 brush strokes, while if I'm taking the smaller one, like this one, I will have to make more of brush strokes, and we know that less brush strokes we do, the more effortless our painting looks. And my favorite is round brush. The main thing is it has to have really thin and sharp point, and it allows to create the petals of all kind of shapes, because it has those really thin sharp point, and you can create the very sharp pointed petals with it. Also, you can create the fluffy peonies petals, and you can paint all those kind of tiny little shadows between, for example, peonies or roses petals. And also I'm using it to paint the stems, to paint the leaves. It allows me to paint a leaf with just 2-3 brush strokes. And here I'm showing how I'm painting the shadows between those fluffy peony petals. This brush is my top favorite brush. So before you start paint your flowers, try to decide which brush it is better to use, which brush will allow you to make less brush strokes and to create the overall shape of your flower and shadows with brush strokes instead of outlining and painting all the inside area of them. And the next very useful tip or advice is to use enough paint. This is the most often problem I meet among my students. They just don't mix enough paint, they don't take enough water, and they don't take enough of pigment. So note, you won't be able to paint effortless, to paint loose, if you don't load your brush enough. Look at my palette, how much paint I have mixed it there to create just a few brush strokes of petals. It's like a really large puddle. I took a lot of paint and I took a lot of water, and then when I need to change my color I take even more. So don't save on pigment or on water, take enough. In my lessons I usually pay attention to the consistency of the paint, because it's really important. Sometimes you need to mix really light color, and then I tell that paint consistency has to be like liquid tea. Sometimes we need to paint wet on wet, then the paint will be thicker, and I'm saying that it has to be like thick cream. Sometimes it has to be something between, when we are painting like really bright or dark flowers, something like thick coffee. But every time, not depending on how bright or how dark the color is, there has to be enough paint. You have to be able to load your brush fully and then to easily move it against your paper. For you wouldn't have to make several brush strokes like I just did for this leaf, to be able just to cover this area, because you just don't have enough paint on the brush. And if you load it enough, you will do just 1, 2, and the paint will make everything for you and the brush. You will just create a shape and the paint will flow inside it, creating beautiful blends. Pay attention to my palette right now. Like it has a lot of paint in it. It has those large puddles and mixes of the color, and it allows to paint effortless. It allows to make those really loose, really easy movings, easy brush strokes. Even if you paint really light areas, take more water. Only if you take enough of paint, you will be able to create your shapes with brush strokes, to build your shapes, as I mentioned in previous lesson, like a mosaic from tiny tiles, but using the brush strokes instead of those tiles. So these two plain and simple things, like using the right brush, the brush of the right shape and the right size, and taking enough paint, not to save on paint and water. These two things can make a huge impact to your techniques, making your painting look effortless, look more professional, and making the process more enjoyable for you. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was useful, and maybe you even were able to paint this peony flower alongside with me. I would love to see your paintings, and if you would like to get feedback or feedback to any other of your artworks created within my classes, I would love to do this. So feel free to contact me, to email me, or to send me a message via Instagram.